The FBI and USCIS discovered how Muslims have been taking over Minnesota, including terrorists. Nearly half of all immigrants involve sham marriages, forged documents, and visa abuses. Operation Twin Shield, conducted by the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services from September 19th to the 28th, investigated thousands of cases in Minnesota, St. Paul area, uncovering fraud, noncompliance, and public safety concerns in nearly 50% of the cases. Sham marriage. One case involved an alien that fabricated a death certificate from Kenya for $100 to falsely claim the termination of a marriage despite the spouse being alive and residing in Minnesota with their children. Ma'am, I understand that your husband's dead. That's correct. Okay, who's that? My husband. Is he dead? No. But for $100, I got a letter that said he is. Significant abuse of the H-1B and F-1 visa systems, with individuals overstaying visas engaging in fraudulent employment. Apparently, they were looking up these places of employment in the area and found out that none of these places actually existed and have never existed. Instances of forged documents were rampant, undermining the integrity of the immigration process, as we am not shocked whatsoever. Jeff doesn't need a very typical, for everyone giving Jeff a hard time for being an alien. Jeff doesn't need, he needs the international H-1B visa, and I think he's okay on that. Let's see. Some cases involve marriage fraud where U.S. elderly citizens were subjected to abuse and exploitation. So what I read into about that, because we know there's never any fraud with immigration, there's never any fraud with Medicare, there's never any fraud, until there's a shitload of fraud. It's the same thing as illegals are not getting health care, except, well, okay, not as many illegals and yada, yada, yada. Here we are once again. We were told none of this happens, yet it does. We were told this didn't happen with COVID money, and then we found out we lost what? Something like $500 billion or some ridiculous amount of money. From what I read, the marriage fraud where the elderly U.S. citizens were subjected to abuse and exploitation, they were essentially finding an old person, finding somebody to pair with them, and forcing them to, quote unquote, get married so they could get their citizenship. And then essentially telling them, if you fucking say something, we'll fucking make sure nobody ever sees, blah, 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 blah. Right? This is what we're subjecting people to in our country with our loose immigration borders and our rampant, fraudulent immigration system, that it's being corrected. But this is what happens when you just open the fucking floodgates and look the other way on everything.